What's up, Cryptomaniacs? This is your host, Dylan from Crypto Smart Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about another coin. This time I'm talking about ELF. So if you don't know what ELF is, it is currently ranked 64th in market cap out of all the coins. So it's been rising over the past week or so. It is down quite a bit today, 11%. But despite that, I think that it's a great coin, and I'm going to be talking about what they're trying to do and kind of just introducing you to what ELF is. For full disclaimer, I do own about 10% of my portfolio in ELF. I just recently got in, and once I did, they went up. So I originally got in at about 8% or 7%, and now I'm at 10%. So what is ELF? Let's talk about that over here. So they have this really nice presentation they put together, and I am going to be using that just to introduce you to them. So ELF, they claim to be a turning point. How do I zoom out here? There we go. A turning point in blockchain industry. So from concept driven to business driven, they say. So if we look over here, we look at the start of alternative chains and tokens. So essentially what we're looking at is Ethereum here, is what I would say. So most of your alternative chains and alternative tokens come off of Ethereum as ERC20. So in 2013, 2014, these are going to be your Ethereum tokens coming out. And in 2016, 2017, we see the beginning of ICOs, and ICOs have been huge. This whole past year, they've been insane. And we still see a ton of new ICOs, ton of hype surrounding all these ICOs. And yeah, there's just a ton of stuff going on in the ICO space right now. We have over 1,500 different cryptocurrencies, which, I mean, that's an insane number. How do you even keep track of all those cryptocurrencies? Anyways, so that's ICOs, that's where we are currently at. And over here we see the future. So this is where ELF says they are getting implanted into the space here. And they say they are the turning point to bring real-world assets into the crypto world here. So they say number 1 was the alternative chains and tokens, number 2 is the beginning of ICOs, and number 3 is their future here. And they say that they are the future. So over here we just look at the price, and I'm guessing this is in billions of dollars for market cap, so 100 to 200 in this range. And then up here we're at about 400 right now, so that's pretty accurate currently. And going beyond that, they think that cryptocurrency is going to surge, which, I mean, so do we all, right? That's why we're here. So moving on from that slide, they say they are the next breakthrough in the blockchain. And this, I don't really like this slide. I'll just take you through it real quick. So governance is something that they talk about later in this, so I'll get more into that. One chain to one scenario, so they're looking at this one chain going on forever and calling that the main chain with a bunch of different side chains coming off of it. And they are doing so through parallel processing, distributed framework, and delegated proof of stake. So here is kind of an outline of what they are trying to do. First, over here we look at Bitcoin. They label it as the first cryptocurrency, which obviously it was. Secure and transparent value transfer. And well, Bitcoin is probably pretty outdated as a cryptocurrency for the currency standpoint. It's still very secure, and the value transfer is, secure and transparent. Ethereum comes along, and they are, yes, the expansion of use cases. That is perfectly put there. So they come along, they introduce smart contracts based off of the blockchain, and from there, eventually we see all these ERC20 tokens coming off of Ethereum and off of their blockchain. So after that, then we see ELF. And they have listed over here commercial scale performance, self-evolving capability, and resource segregation and cross-chain communication. So they provide us what they essentially say is close to an unlimited amount of scalability. Self-evolving capability, I'm not sure what they mean by that, to be completely honest. Resource segregation and cross-chain communication. So again, they have that main ELF chain, and then coming off of that long main chain, they have all these different branches that are side chains coming off, that are different forks or smart contracts or whatever comes off. So the highlights from ELF. So there we talk about the self-evolving main chain. So that's what they meant by the self-evolving capability. So, and then they have side chains as well. They say customizable consensus protocols ensure new features and updates to be implemented in the grid. So that's what they mean by self-evolving. Main chain plus an unlimited number of side chains, they say, fulfilling requirements of various commercial applications, reducing data redundancy. So I came over this way. Then we have optimized operating system architecture. So minimum viable system, smart contract collection, untitled account, unified account system. So they're just talking about the capability of the chain to produce smart contracts. Over here we see fast transaction processing. So they do so through parallel processing and through the cloud. And we also see highly efficient cross-chain communication. So that Merkle tree is their main chain, and the side chains branching off of that. And they use this to establish cross-chain indexes and cross-chain communication as well. So here is a core idea. So if we look at Ethereum, they say all nodes are equal, which is true. All Ethereum nodes are considered equal, and that's the case with pretty much anything you look at, any one of these platforms that you look at. Most of the nodes are equal. And with ELF, they are categorized according to their roles. So some nodes are going to be more important than others, and those nodes are going to be more valuable than the other ones when you're looking at ELF. So let's go down. Here we're shown kind of a more in-depth look of that. So these nodes do not split consensus groups. So if we have this main chain here, that's going to be the highest role, I guess you would say. So the main chain is going to be categorized as probably the number one, or however you want to say that. And these are 3 full nodes. We have the light node here. So this is our mining node A. Then we have B and C over here. And I don't really like how they show this. I think it's a little bit confusing, but essentially they are saying that listing the main chain as the most important, then they have the GAT and the DEX chains below that. Yeah, let's just move on from this slide here. So here we have their nodes. So this is one full node. So here we have the mining node. We have 3 categories, and they're saying this one is the highest category here. So we have the peer-to-peer layer. We have smart contracts over here being executed, and then we have the storage here on the blocks. And they say this is all deployed on the cloud, which is given by ELF's services. And so this mining node is very simplified, but essentially this is a full node right here, and this is how they describe it. So here we have the side chain indexing. So essentially what they are showing here is this is one big ledger here. Here we have their main chain, and here we have a couple different side chains with, I would say, different capabilities. So the ledgers index these side chains through a Merkle tree root system. So remember that Merkle tree is the main chain, and then the branches or the roots coming off of that are each of these side chains. So this is just showing you the indexing of these branches for the main chain. So that is coming back to that cross-chain communication and indexing. Down here we see finally the description of how this chain is going to work. So up here we see this main chain, and then we see all their different possibilities for their side chains. We have, let's zoom in a little bit here, information registration, financial services, digital asset issuance, sorry. Up here we have decentralized exchange, we have digital identity, insurance sidechain, and then we have just other sidechains. So the possibilities for these sidechains are nearly limitless, I would say. Anything that runs on a smart contract you can have as a sidechain. So down here we see a better description of their chains. So here we see the main chain, the ELF main chain there, and over on this side we see information registration, digital asset issuance, decentralized exchanges, insurance right here, and then we see Bitcoin and Ethereum forks as well. And they label this as ELF architecture forms a highly organized central business district where each industry has its dedicated sidechain to fulfill its requirements. One chain, one scenario. So here they are describing that one chain to one scenario. So each of these chains has its own purpose, and by doing that, ELF keeps it running so much more smooth. So if you have one chain trying to serve multiple different purposes, it's going to get clogged up. And through ELF, we have one chain, one purpose, and the cross communication of each chain and the indexing of each chain is so much easier because this chain can communicate with this main chain without having to even touch these other chains. So just think of how much easier that is to do when you don't have to go through a huge branch off of here and here and here and here and here and here and here. So we just have this main chain and these side chains to communicate with. Much easier to use, much smoother to operate. So ELF's doing pretty well here. ELF says system customization has never been easier. So here we see the minimum viable blockchain system. So we have the consensus protocol, smart contract, collection, and the unified account system. Down here, customizable interface. Over here it says they provide systematic operating kernel, customize and optimize the system through interfaces, and establish a diversified and flexible ecosystem similar to Linux. So here they're kind of showing a business how to use blockchain, I would say. Yeah, we're just going to skip over this slide here. Here we talk about congestion here. So each of these chains that is being shown here has its own way to go and has such an easier time trying to communicate with that ELF main chain. So ELF has efficient parallel processing mechanisms to meet commercial scale applications. No more concerns about system congestion when a token sale takes place in the system. So here we see the parallel processing down here, and here we see the mechanism on ELF, and we see how smoothly these go through here. And here we see the processing mechanisms on the current blockchain, and we can see an intersection there, which would cause a lot of congestion on the current blockchain. So here is another description of how ELF is highly efficient. So, this is a lot to take in here. So here, let's just look at each of these chains as one. So here's our main chain. Coming off, here we have one chain, here we have another chain, here we have a couple more chains, here's another chain, and here are our other chains. So the internal customized side chains have your consensus module, your access control module, and your security module. Internal side chains have your crowdfunding, your tokens, your decentralized applications, blockchain tech. So here are the potential forks with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other blockchain-based systems. Over here, communication with external blockchain systems. So over here we have Bitcoin's peer-to-peer network, and here we have Ethereum's smart contract network, guarantee schemes. So as you can see, there's just a lot of different uses for ELF, and that is what they're trying to show here. They're trying to show how many different possibilities the ELF platform has. So, self-evolving and improvement. ELF promotes new sidechain integration and new feature introduction. So the consensus protocol to adopt future improvements and the dynamic sidechain joining and exiting to introduce competition. So we see again, here is your Merkle tree, and here are your roots coming off of it. So this is self-evolving, it's dynamic, it's really awesome. It's such a smooth way to run this, and I personally think that this is a lot like Ethereum, but a lot like a smaller scale, smoother Ethereum. That's how I would describe ELF. So here is their development. So capital, commercial applications, and technology. So for capital, they say they leverage ELF ecosystem to reserve the reward to leverage ELF ecosystem reserve to reward contributors and invest in promising projects along with venture capitalists. So they establish the business alliance, startup and corporate, to promote blockchain innovation, explore new business models with leading consulting firms. And that was for the application side. And for the technology, they focus on cutting-edge technologies to incorporate into ELF's ecosystems. So here is the governance that they talked about above. And this is a grid foundation that's being set up in Singapore and as the governance entity for ELF. They are a non-profit entity, so they promote ELF technology development and applications. They facilitate corporates and startups to establish new businesses and transform themselves in digital business. So the Grid Foundation will implement comprehensive management and governance models fully compliant with regulations and laws in Singapore. So here is their open source foundation. They state that token holders are members with annual fees, token amount corresponds to voting rights, and they establish a decentralized Linux foundation. They attract business, technical, and capital partners. So they do all that through open source. Here is their team. I'm not going to tell you too much about them, but we have an MIT graduate there. Here is a CEO of Huobi, which is the website we're on right now. He's a blockchain expert, they say. Here we have a software engineer, and here we have a geospatial and transaction network data doctor. So here is their roadmap for the future. So they are not currently a working product, which, I mean, we've heard a lot of that in cryptocurrency today. So don't let that deter you from getting ELF if it's something that you believe will change the future, which I think ELF is a really good idea that might do that. So for February 2018, right now, actually, they are working on parallel processing, so launching this ELF asset chain based on UTXO model, and they are validating and developing the ELF kernel. Come May? Yes, May is the 5th month. Come May, they want to have their multiple side chains out there. So their operating system, and they're trying to launch their main chain and complete that main chain so that they can support their cross-chain interactions. And by August of 2018, they hope to have their governance out there in Singapore. So this is a voting system based on ELF with a new voting mechanism, sidechain accessing mechanism, and emergency mechanisms. So once that is released, I think we're going to see a big increase in the use case for ELF because it might be something that catches on all throughout Singapore, which is a pretty big country. And then January of 2019, they want to make their official launch into business scenarios. and make themselves commercially available and formally usable in commercial scenarios. So that's a big step right there, and all these are big steps. And they're working on this one right now. This one will be within the next few months, and beyond that, they're going to keep building and keep building. So thank you, ELF, for putting this together for me to use, and thanks to all my viewers that are watching this right now. Just so that you know, I am not a financial advisor, so don't buy anything based strictly on what I say. I do think that ELF is a great product. I do have some of my own money in it. I'm not just saying that ELF is good because I have it invested in it. I'm saying that based on all of this data that we looked at today. So I think that this is genuinely a really good platform for this. I think this main chain and side chain idea to stop the congestion is a great way to do it, and I think ELF is really going to become something. ELF is available on which markets? Let's see. I know it is on Binance. That is where I bought it. Huobi is its highest volume. So Huobi, Bitcoin. So if you use Huobi, you can get it with Bitcoin. You can get it with Ethereum, Tether. Binance, you can get it with Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then it's also available on OKX, Buybox, and some other ones. So take your pick there. I'd recommend using Huobi or Binance because they are the highest volumes. Binance has about 8%, and Huobi has a vast majority of the market. If you're going to use that, I would recommend kind of looking into these two here. Binance is probably a lot safer to use. I've never used Huobi, so I will put my affiliate link to Binance in the description of this video. If you don't have an account there, I'd recommend you go do so because they have a lot of these altcoins like ELF, and I think that Binance is honestly the best exchange out there. I'll also be putting my link to Coinbase in the description. If you're thinking about getting into Ethereum, Bitcoin, or Litecoin, go ahead and use that. Go over there, spend $100, and we both get $10. So that is an awesome thing for both of us. So thank you guys for watching. This has been Dylan from Crypto Smart Reviews with my ELF review. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed.